Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Q&A video here. So in this one here, I want to answer your questions regarding mostly The Walking Dead, I would say, but there's some questions on other shows as well, so I do want to get into that. So before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. We're going to be learning a lot of news here about Dead City in just 3 days. On Tuesday, February 25th, they're going to be having this whole event happening where Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Lauren Cohen, and I believe Scott M. Gimple will actually be there and be discussing the show. You know, we're supposed to get a first look trailer and I imagine a bunch of new information, including the release date, because we still do not know that, right? And today is the day that I think Scott Gimple's doing some sort of event with like former cast members of The Walking Dead. So I do wonder if there's going to be some questions there, like if they're all together on a panel. Again, I don't know how this is supposed to like turn out or anything like that, but if they're all together on a panel, like, oh, could we see you in a future Walking Dead spinoff or this and that? You know, like Gimple is going to have to say something. Like, does he just be like, no, right? Like, I don't know what he's going to say. And so maybe nothing comes out of the event that's supposed to be happening today. But if there is, I will do a video on that. So definitely make sure to be a subscriber to get all of my Walking Dead content, because Dead City will be here in the next couple of months here. It's going to be here very, very soon. But let's get into the very first question here. So Q&A, sir, what is your thoughts on The Ones Who Live? Do you think there is going to be more seasons in the next months or next year? I think that I don't know. Like, I really don't know at all. But we're going to see Rick again for sure. I do really feel confident in that. I don't think it's going to be a cameo, because I think that's just not enough, you know, for having Andrew Lincoln come back. I think if he comes back, he's going to want to do his own show, like his own story, and sort of make a bigger deal there. Like, he's not going to come back just to reunite Daryl and Rick and that's it. Like, he wants there likely to be a reunion story that was just as good as The Ones Who Live, because he did say that. He was saying, like, you know, to come back and do another story, it needs to be just like this. So it's not going to be like a cameo or anything like that. I do imagine it's going to be something like that. In terms of when, I do think that by 2028 it's going to happen. Like, that's sort of the prediction I have as of right now. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's sort of, yeah, I mean, I think that's likely when we're probably going to see something. We'll get an announcement way beforehand, obviously, maybe at this year's Comic-Con or next year's, but we'll just have to follow the news and whatnot with that and just see what's happening just overall. But Q&A, do you think we'll ever get to see Rick leading the Commonwealth in a future Walking Dead project with Ezekiel and Mercer? And do you think Mercer would respect Rick? And would Rick respect Mercer? Yes, I think definitely they would both have a lot of respect for each other. And that's some of the stuff that honestly I really want to see. Like, I think that's why I personally don't want the next reunion story to be like Rick and Daryl, because there's actually so much other story there that I would rather see. I want to see Rick, Michonne, you know, Aaron, Gabriel, like Morgan, Mercer. I'm just trying to think of all the other characters there at the Commonwealth. Eugene as well, right? Like, there are so many characters there that for everyone to reunite would be really, really cool. And just to sort of have, like, I don't even know, like, just some sort of story. I don't know what you could do in terms of a story, but you could obviously come up with something, like just create a villain, do some sort of story there, but to bring everyone back together to see what life is like for Rick and Michonne now, right? Like, are they living at the Commonwealth right now? Or are they going to be, you know, in Alexandria? In terms of your question, like, you know, are we ever going to see Rick leading the Commonwealth? I think that depends on if he really wants to. That's a whole other story that happens in the comics. And that's what's kind of interesting as well, you know, when it comes to the ending of the comics, is the people there want Rick to lead. And, you know, in the show, there really wasn't a leader that everyone chose. Like, yeah, Ezekiel became the leader, and I think Mercer, I don't remember exactly how all that played out there. I do believe Ezekiel was up there, and like, it made a lot of sense. Obviously, Ezekiel is a very amazing leader, so obviously, like, that makes a lot of sense. But the way it happens in the comic is Rick just sort of steps up and makes this big speech and sort of turns everyone in the Commonwealth, because they all realize, okay, actually what Pamela Milton is doing is really, really wrong. We want Rick Grimes as the leader, right? And we never got to see that ever, really, obviously. And so it would be kind of cool to see that at some point here, if like Rick, maybe he doesn't want to be the leader, but the people of the Commonwealth choose him to be the leader. I think it would be such a cool story that would just like go back to, you know, the Alexandria story and all that, but it would be on a bigger scale. It would be such cool setup for bringing Rick and Daryl back together, set up that world there and how everything is now all these years later, so that there's like this bigger threat out there or something else happening. And then that's when Daryl and Carol come back and then there's something else you can have there, because you want Morgan to be a part of the story as well. Like, that's one of my concerns about doing a reunion show or a series, is like, if it's all just in 6 episodes or it's like 10 episodes or whatever it's going to be, like, you have to have every single character all together in that amount of time. And you're not going to be able to do it, properly at all. It's going to be so rushed. People are going to complain so much. So I think that, yeah, like, in terms of ever seeing that from Rick, I think it would be really, really important, but it depends. Honestly, it just really depends. And I think that's why I've been saying for a really long time now that the next show I want is not the Rick and Daryl reunion. I want Rick and Morgan to reunite. I think both of them reuniting and having a story there with the Commonwealth and just like whatever would be a really great way to set up a future story and like a bigger, like, I guess, reunion event at the end. But Q&A, did you hear the news that The Last of Us season part 2 will be adapted into the next 3 seasons? Is the game long enough to cover 3 seasons? I think that there's a chance that maybe they could do something like that. Like, for sure, I do believe that it's just going to be, there's going to be a lot more built up, I think, to Joel's death, for sure. I'm still wondering if they're going to do that very early on or like at the end of the season, because I don't know where they go with the story otherwise. Like, they're going to have to get into a lot of, newer material and all that. And that's why I'm really interested in The Last of Us season 2, because I've watched a lot of season 1, obviously, and or I've watched all of season 1, and I mean, it's basically the first game, right? They didn't really change too many things there, but that's the thing with season 2, is that there's just so much drama there that I think doing that over 4 seasons is just going to be, I mean, I feel like that 4th season would have to have some other material in there that, like, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. I know that HBO was recently set, or I don't know if it was HBO for sure, but I did hear that the 4th season was probably going to be the last season for The Last of Us. So, I mean, who knows? Things could change. Maybe they'll add another season, but HBO is pretty much like, HBO, from what I've learned, is pretty like, like, if this is how many seasons we see the show going for, that's exactly it. We're not going to go past that, no matter how successful it is, and they'll move on to something else, kind of thing, right? Or at least it seems like that anyways, in my opinion. But I don't think the game is long enough to cover 3 seasons. They're definitely going to have a lot of original material there. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like, maybe they'll try to work on a 3rd game right now to have it out before that very last season is out. This way they can actually like add more seasons, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. But your next question, Q&A. Do you see Daredevil appearing in the next 2 Avengers movies, since the actor seems interested? Love all you do, and my apologies for the lengthy question. No, don't worry about it. It's all right. I could see Daredevil showing up there, but it depends with, like, honestly, I don't even know who the Avengers really are going to be in the next 2 Avengers movies, because there hasn't been a lot of setup. Like, obviously we have an idea of who some of the characters are going to be, but like, so many of those characters had movies a long time ago, and it's like they're just going to randomly show up. Like, there's always been sort of a build up to those moments, right? So I just don't know how a lot of that's going to play out here in this movie. I really don't. And like, I haven't been the biggest fan of Marvel, lately, because of just, I don't know what they're doing with their storylines. And I just think that in general, Disney Plus and like having shows on Disney Plus is sort of hurting the movies overall, because it's taken away characters, really amazing storylines that could be in the movies. Like, I never watched the new Captain America movie, but I've just been hearing a lot of really horrible things about it. And that's just unfortunate, because, I mean, it's a Captain America movie, right? Like, it should do really well. So I don't know. Honestly, in terms of who the next Avengers are going to be, Daredevil, I think, would be really, really cool. I just think that in terms of the scale of the threat and all that, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense for him to be there. But, definitely if he is there, for a lot of fans, it's going to be really incredible, right? To have Daredevil, Spider-Man, and I mean, I don't know who else they could have there. Like, honestly, having John Bernthal there, like, the Punisher, would be really cool. But if you're dealing with Galactus, I don't know. But anyways, Q&A. Do you still like the idea of an anthology series? We had Tales of the Walking Dead, but they can obviously come up with more and better stories. I've talked about this, I think, in the last couple of months. Yes, for sure. Like, the anthology series was always something that honestly could be even better than almost like the original show, in terms of like how much fun you have watching it. Like, I can't believe they messed it up that bad. I really cannot believe they messed up the anthology series that bad, because it was pretty easy to do. Like, you just don't do certain things with certain characters, and also you got to have more connections with like the overall story, like connect to this and that. Like, it just, everything felt so off. And like, honestly, that Atlanta episode where they went back to 2010, and then there was all of that, just like going back in time, and then just like that whole thing that happened didn't really like need to happen, but if that was going to be the weird episode of the 6, I think that's fine. And I think that's one of the things that's so frustrating about that episode, where they go forward like 35 years into the future, because that's really interesting. Like, what are walkers going to be like, right? And we watch the episode and don't really learn a lot. Like, we learn, I guess, some stuff about some areas, but like, they could have given us a lot more. They could have teased some stuff like, oh, there was like this big event that happened. Like, that's the thing. Like, The Walking Dead needs to build to some sort of big event, and it is. But I just think the way that Gimple is running some of this stuff here, like, there should be big amounts of information or really important things to have in all of that, so that it matters when you watch that stuff, because it all connects. And like, that show, and besides the alpha episode, I think there might be another one that I really liked or that sort of connected. It just feels so like not connected at all, and like there's no point. Like, you have to make everything matter when you're watching these shows. You don't want to have just an original series with all new characters and not have it like connected. Like, yes, that's exactly what I want. I know I've talked about that a lot, and I do want that. I want an original series with new characters, but I want that story to matter overall with what they're doing in The Walking Dead, right? Like, I don't mean like you have to have crossovers right away, but just maybe at some point way down the line, eventually something else happens, right? So I don't know. Like, I like the idea of the anthology series, and I'm just sort of sad that Gimple messed that up, because I just think that honestly could have been really amazing. Same with World Beyond. Like, World Beyond got a lot better in season 2, but it was still not handled well. Fear the Walking Dead, for the most part, was not handled well, and yeah, I don't know. I would have done things differently, I think. But Q&A, if the zombie apocalypse actually happened, which universe would you want to exist in? The Last of Us or The Walking Dead? Explain why you chose that universe. So, if I had to choose which one I would want to exist in, I would probably have to say, like, it's so hard to say because there's two ideas to it, right? Like, The Last of Us, yes, they have clickers and stuff, and yes, there's a lot more terrifying things there, but The Walking Dead is starting to get into that a little bit now. And I don't know, but people aren't as threatening, you know, in The Last of Us as they are in The Walking Dead, and sometimes that can be scarier, right? So it depends. It really is. I think that if I did have to pick a world to live in, you know, if a zombie apocalypse happened, I would probably choose The Walking Dead, because The Last of Us, I think, is just something that, I don't know, in terms of clickers and trying to survive, like, that's just a whole other thing. And The Walking Dead is starting to get into some of that stuff with variant walkers, so we'll see where they eventually go. But I've watched The Walking Dead so much now that I think I know how I would survive, right? Like, and also there are some communities that are literally totally fine, so maybe go and find somewhere like the Commonwealth and just live there and you're totally fine, right? So I think I would have to go with The Walking Dead. But Q&A, the way you talked about Herschel becoming a villain in your recent videos got me thinking, what if you tried to kill Negan at some point? I guess that probably won't happen since Negan is a main character, but it's an interesting what if scenario. What do you think? I mean, I could definitely see that happening in season 2 or 3 for sure. Like, I think that that's something with the character that will make him way more fascinating, is like, if he's trying to get revenge for his father, right? Or like to end the whole thing between him and Maggie, because like, obviously Herschel is so upset, and we learned in season 1 that he's just so upset with Maggie for constantly being so obsessive about the fact that Negan survived, right? So if Herschel's like, you know what, I'm done with him, I'm getting revenge, this and that, then like maybe he actually tries to do that. Like, that would be really, really cool. I mean, it would be kind of interesting, right? Because would Maggie want Herschel to do that? Like, that would open up a whole other thing. Like, honestly, that's a really great idea, and I wonder if the writers have thought of that. Like, you know, they've been talking about Herschel going down like a darker path. I wonder if that's what it's going to be. And I wonder if that's like the finale, basically, is like not Negan dying or anything like that, but just like he chooses the path of like, maybe it's like Brugel's path, and that means that he's going to be against him. And so maybe we get like Herschel versus Negan at some point in season 3. I think that could be really, really cool. But in terms of your other question, Q&A, do you think that the conflict between Herschel and Maggie will get any better? I think that it should over time. Obviously, it's mother and son. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of the way that they write stories here, I think I would say comfortably that, yeah, it'll probably happen. Like, I think, you know, that conflict will get better over time. I would prefer it to not get better over time. Like, honestly, just because like sometimes with some of these characters, everything goes like the right way it's supposed to. And sometimes I'm just like, why don't you just like write a tragic ending for a character? Like, I know sometimes that stuff is like, oh, like you want way more for the character, but that's, you know, that can be really amazing writing sometimes. So it would be really cool, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Q&A. Do you see them doing a flashback to when Carol seen Rick come back, and maybe that's why Andrew Lincoln came to Spain, or maybe it's something to do with Jeffrey Grimes's flashback with Rick? So in terms of all of that there, with your first part, no, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I really think that Carol doesn't know at all that Rick and Michonne made it back. In terms of the Jeffrey Grimes stuff, I don't think Andrew Lincoln would be there for anything regarding that. Just because, yeah, I just don't see that being a possibility. I think that he most likely was in Spain for season 3 of filming, only because he was visiting the set, right? Just to go say hi to Norman Reedus and Melissa McBride. To me, that makes the most sense. But yeah, the Jeffrey Grimes stuff for sure, like that is going to come up a lot when we start talking about season 3. Obviously, we have Dead City season 2 to focus on right now, but like that Jeffrey Grimes stuff is going to be really coming up because like now's the time. Like they're going to Spain, and I believe that there's some talk of like filming near Barcelona, or maybe they did, or maybe they plan to in the future. I don't know. So like, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much there that I'm like, it almost makes sense that maybe we'll get into that, right? But we'll have to wait and see. So I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.